Okay, the hour of 6 o'clock having arrived, we'll call the regular meeting of the Sherman Village Board to order. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Yes.
Trustee Hahn?
Yes.
Trustee Long?
Yes.
Trustee Rockford?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz?
He has an excused absence.
Trustee Tim?
Yes.
And Village President Clackholder.
Yes, so that is 6 members of the village board answering the roll, a quorum being established. We're going to proceed with the order of business as set forth on the agenda. Today's date is Tuesday, January 19th of 2021. The location is the Sherman Village Hall, 401 St. John's Drive, Sherman, Illinois. The time of the meeting is 6 p.m. and the type of the meeting is a regular meeting of the Sherman Village Board of Trustees. Moving along in the opening would bring us to the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everybody to stand and face the flag and have Trustee Hahn lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. We need to set the agenda. The agenda has been posted 48 hours in advance of the meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Therefore, there will be no action items added to the agenda. And we're not going to add any other items for emergency purposes. There is one item I'm going to talk to you about, but we don't even need to add it for emergency purposes. So that being said, are there any trustees that want to add anything for discussion purposes? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to set the agenda. Motion's been made by Trustee Gray, seconded by Trustee Long. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. The agenda is set. Clerk's report. Item number 1, presentation of the December 15th, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. They are presented by the clerk for approval. Are there any trustees wishing to address any of the items in the minutes as presented? Everything looks good according to the last meeting. So that being said, we need a motion to approve the December 15th, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Trustee Rockford makes a motion, seconded by Trustee Hahn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Yes.
Trustee Hahn?
Yes.
Trustee Long?
Yes.
Trustee Rockford?
Yes.
Trustee Schultz? I'm sorry, Trustee Tim?
Yes.
5 members voting yes, none voting no. Minutes are adopted. Be added to the village website. Next item is the presentation of the bills for approval. These are presented for your viewing. If there are any trustees wishing clarification on any of the bills, please speak up now and ask those questions. Okay, so and I'm going to make this statement real fast at the beginning of this meeting. We typically do this in terms of the board approving bills all the time. It's been a customary and common practice. We're going to continue to do that, but I need to let you know that I've directed the staff. We have bills that come in to this village. Sometimes there's a thinking that they got to wait for full board approval to pay a bill that is a monthly bill or something along those lines. If you think about the executive branch and the legislative branch, right? The legislative branch, which is the board of trustees, you set policy. You have the power of the purse, appropriation. So you establish a budget every year, and then it's the executive branch's role to go out and execute what the policy and the appropriation is that's set by the board. Same as the federal government would do. Congress does not approve bills every month. The state government, governor, is given a budget. His executive branch agencies, I think most people, almost everybody in here, with the exception of Trustee Hahn, works for a executive branch agency, and Trustee Schultz isn't here, but under the governor. If they had to go back every single month and get an approval from the legislature for a customary bill that would come in, it would not make sense, it would be inefficient, and it would be outright silly. So that being said, I want us in 2021 to have the best practices for getting all of our bills paid in a very timely fashion before they come out and all of that stuff. And that happens for the most part, but to some end, there will be some question like, well, kick the bills out, get them paid, present it to the board. If there's a question, there's a discrepancy, if there's any issues, we'll address it at that point in time. But the big thing is keep the process moving and get what the budget, what the board has already set in a budget, purchased, paid for, and keep moving. And I say that because we have one issue regarding a public works bill for where we get parts from, and whatever. But when we're going and buying parts for our vehicles monthly, the board has set an appropriation for maintenance of vehicles. There should be no question as to why that bill should not be, should just pay O'Reilly, pay, who's the others?
O'Reilly was the
AutoZone, whoever it is or whatever. So, that being said, I want to let you know that that take place, those bills get out immediately like that, and there can be no question regarding that. You'll still get all the bills presented to you, we can still approve them, but at the end of the day, that's not truly a function of a legislative body to be doing. But that being said, presentation of the bills are presented for approval. Anybody wishing to question any of the bills? So, okay. So let's just make a motion to approve the bills, which, like I said, it's kind of arbitrary in and of itself, but whatever at this point. So Trustee Gray makes a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Trustee Tim. I'll do a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Yes.
Trustee Hahn?
Yes.
Trustee Long?
Yes.
Trustee Rocker?
Yes.
Trustee Tim?
Yes. 5 members voting yes, none voting no. Bills are approved for payment. Okay, so there is no treasurer's report this evening. Village engineer, he has other commitments to another village. We have a light agenda where we did not need him, so he's attending on his engineering firm's behalf at that meeting and taking the evening off. I think everybody knows, but our engineer, I saw him today. He's trying to get his head above water after the tragic events that happened at his family's home, at a house fire. Yeah, so his total loss, everything gone. So, what's that?
I have not.
Okay, I thought maybe he only emailed us. Okay, I was thinking that he emailed the entire board, so my apologies. Anyway, what was it, a couple weeks ago now?
Right.
What's that?
It was right after.
It was before the first of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I thought it was a couple days after Christmas. But
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, something like that. So, it's devastating when you lose everything, literally everything. So, when Kevin is back here, keep him in we'll give him well wishes, and he needs the support. He's doing good. Like I said, I saw him today. He was at the same place that I dined at. If there's people that, like I told him, if there's people that can persevere through something like that, whether, it's tough for anybody, but he and his wife are strong-willed, good people that, can somewhat find the positive in something so negative. So, he's off tonight, attending another village. Same with legal counsel Craven. He's at another village as well. We didn't need him this evening for what we're doing on this agenda. So, village administrator, economic development coordinator.
The only thing I'll report on is, because the timely issue is, since the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity offered opportunity for villages around the state of Illinois to participate in their reimbursement program under the COVID restrictions. Our allotment was $171,000. The deadline for that actually is January 31st. It covers the period from March 1st until December 30th. Any expenses relating to COVID, including personnel, public safety, or other costs. Obviously, we had a substantial amount of time that was spent in managing that whole system in relation to local businesses, the village itself, and purchasing items. Glad to report that we have submitted the reimbursement. It was completed finally as of today, and it exceeds the $171,000 request, but we were only asking for the full $171,000, which will go back into our general fund once that money is received. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
And that's a guarantee you get that? Or?
Absolutely.
President's report. Item number 1, I'll read this into the record. It's listed as an ordinance regarding the sale of surplus vehicles and equipment and approval of bids to purchase. So I'll turn it over to Administrator Stratton. Administrator Stratton worked with Chief Banger and Public Works Director Newton to surplus out some of the very old, outdated equipment that we have sitting around here, and to get that out the door as best as possible. They anticipated revenues to come in regarding the equipment and was pleasantly surprised. There was a sealed bid opening, of which Administrator Stratton was present at. Who else? Was it?
Taylor was present.
Or Director?
What's that?
Taylor?
Taylor was present.
Taylor Moore was present, and then there was a individual who had bid on it, present as well, right?
Yep.
Anybody else?
That was it.
Okay, so they opened those bids. They, why don't you just go through it really quick?
Yeah, in your packet, you saw the picture of the vehicles and equipment that we were looking to surplus. Those are vehicles and equipment that no longer serve a purpose for the village. Everything has a useful life, and the useful life on that has exhausted, probably has exhausted several years. It's 5 pieces of equipment, an 87 Ford backhoe, an 86 end loader, a 95 Ford 350 with a plow attachment, an 86 GMC ambulance, and a 2004 Chevy Tahoe. All have mechanical or other issues that would cost more to keep going than it would be otherwise. So it was decided by the police chief with his equipment and the Public Works Department to surplus these vehicles. We had initially anticipated maybe $1,000 each per vehicle if we were lucky, and I'm glad to report that it doubled. We actually received over $10,000 worth of requests. The 87 Ford backhoe, surprisingly enough, went for $3,000. Bruce Beal, who's our mechanic and sewer coordinator, immediately said, cash that check, because that's a great deal on that piece of equipment. The 86 end loader went for $1,000. The 95 Ford 350 with a plow went for $25.78. The GMC ambulance went for $18.78. We can't even find the keys for that thing. The 2004 Chevy Tahoe went for $15.78. I'm not sure you can even drive that away. So we were pleasantly surprised to see the numbers come in as high as they did for that. So it worked out well for us. Obviously, it worked out well for them. We have notified every one of the successful bidders. There were more bidders than there were, I think there were 2 additional bids outside of the 5 that were received. So the 2 that obviously did not get awarded those bids came a little lower. So they've been notified. I told them we had a board meeting tonight, and once it's approved by ordinance, we can then start, depositing the checks, and then they can start coordinating with Bruce on scheduling a time within the next week or so to pick up the equipment.
And it was all ran for public notice in a newspaper and
We
posted.
went through the public notice process and everything else, and we had a good response. We put it on the website, and we put it out there on Facebook as well. We put it on some additional sites as well, there were garage sales and marketplace and everything else. We did receive several calls, a lot of people interested.
Okay, so, any questions, discussion? So we need to adopt and approve this ordinance. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion been made by Trustee Rockford, seconded by Trustee Long. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Yes.
Trustee Hahn?
Yes.
Trustee Long?
Yes.
Trustee Rockford?
Yes.
Trustee Tim?
Yes.
5 members voting yes, none voting no. The ordinance is adopted. It will be signed by the village president. Item number 2 is a resolution regarding, I'll read this into the record, use agreement for use of City of Springfield's Police Department Training Academy located at 3501 Color Plant Road for conducting police department range qualification shoots. Chief Banger, can you please take us through this really fast?
Yes, for many years they offered that to us free of charge. I think 2 years ago, they decided they wanted to put a little range fee on there. And for an agency our size, it's $150 for the whole year's use. We also used to have to provide all of our own range supplies like frames and targets and stuff like that. We still provide our own targets, which are paper, but
the range supplies like the frames and everything, they get all shot up and everything. They provide that for us, so. That's what the charter is for us, and that's the reason you guys really require an agreement with us.
So it's an actual agreement that we're entering into with them, which is another reason why it's sitting on the board, so we'll adopt the resolution by a voice vote. Any discussion? Any discussion?
Is that
Trustee
an
Gray?
annual, just an annual fee or?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other further questions? Okay, so, and the resolution sits on the table. Regarding such, is there a motion to approve? Motion's been made by trustee Gray, seconded by trustee Hahn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Well, one thing I did do is I tried to extend it to all board members. And just to get our practice in, because guess what? They said, hey, I tried, right?
So I told them, let's try.
Okay, so there was none opposed, all ayes. That means the resolution passes and is adopted by the Sherman Village Board. Committee and department reports. Did anybody think of anything to state in this section of the agenda? Sherman Police Department, Chief Mayor, anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, we did have a little blurb that we had on social media with the phone system in the police department the other day. AmeriCall came out and serviced it. Took a little while throughout the day to figure out the glitch, but I mean, I think when he finally got the answering machine working, it was talking in French and German and all kinds of things. But anyway, they got that thing resolved, so just heard that. So.
All right. Mr. Mose is off this evening as well. Public Works Director, Sean has the evening off, a light agenda. There is no new business to come before the board. There is no old business before the board. We don't have any civic organizations before us. There's no executive session this evening. We are at public comment period. There is no individuals who have signed in to address the board. What time is it? Seems like a really fast meeting, and it was 6:24, and we started at 6:07.
We did have a flag ceremony.
Oh, I know, before we adjourn, right? Did I already say it? No, I didn't already say it. Regarding bond stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I said at the beginning of the meeting, I was gonna state something. We're working through the next bond issuance for infrastructure, right? Remember we passed the agreement with Mike Southworth, the bond counsel and his law firm. He has been advising us. Mr. Stratton's been working with him very closely. There is a calendar of events that need to take place in order for us to to be successful in doing this bond issuance and making it part of, the first payment essentially part of the 2020 levy that's payable in 2021. So that being said, everything has to be completed by March 1st, according to the calendar. I don't know if there's any little bit of leeway, but for right now, it looks like March 1st is the deadline to get the bond, have the closing date on March 1st and adhere to the time frame and parameters that are set forth in order to have all the information to the county treasurer's office for taxes and all of that stuff. So that being said, we are, in order to keep with those guidelines and those timelines, he has sent us a couple different options, option A, option B, still in draft form, try and get it out to all of you. We just reviewed it very recently. Regarding asking banks for an RFP, a request for proposal. We're gonna get that sent out as an administrative function and posted, much like we did on, say similar to the surplus vehicles, and then report back to the board. So we're gonna follow that process. We're gonna ask the banks for the two options in order to respond to the bond and giving them a few different amounts. Somewhat like we did it, our last bond issuance was in 2016. There's some infrastructure improvements that need to take place that we've discussed on and off. and we discussed in the last bond issuance, this is 5 years later, most cities, towns, state, whatever, I mean, you have 5-year, capital plans that address needs every 5 and 10 years, right? 5 years. That's what we're trying to adhere to, so that 5-year mark is essentially upon us now. Keeping with all of that, we would send out this RFP, ask the banks for basically just a straight up 10, 15, and 20 year, I think that's what he had, note, the payback, give us an interest rate on that, keeping it super simple. Then, for option B, which is what we can also do, is allow them to get a little more creative, and we did that, I think we did that on the last one, or we've done that maybe even on the TIF bond that we did, where we advanced the revenues and let the banks kind of come up with maybe a more creative plan that was best for the village and maybe even for them. And so we're gonna ask for that second tier in option B to see what other options are out there. And then we'll evaluate that as a board, as the, administration and with legal counsel and with the board, and make a determination on what's best. Is it just a straight up, option A, where we just asked everybody that same thing? Or is there something else that is going on, or that can go on with the banks, where they kind of tweak it and make it a little bit better? If you do this now, then, another thing I need to stipulate in this, we're gonna refund that 2016 bond, essentially roll it up into this one. Interest rates are better than even when, at that point in time. So when you do that, it looks like we'll save at least $100,000 from what we would have paid on that one. So there's gonna be $100,000 in savings regarding that bond issuance that we did. But just so that I'm, trying to keep everybody informed, and I told Kevin earlier about this, but trying to keep everybody informed, we're gonna send this out. So if somebody asks you about it, says something, we got local banks here, and then even, Springfield's a small town. There's local banks in there. We know lots of people that work at all these different banks and stuff. They may have questions for you. Direct them to essentially, Stratton, Craven, or even Mike Southworth is probably best, honestly. So that's what I wanted to let everybody know. And then we're working through the projects that'll be included in this, what the funds will go for. With Kevin and his situation, it's kind of pushed some things back. So like I talked to him today, it's like somewhat not back into it, but I would have liked to have a lot more of the project stuff known by now, or not by now, but like having that going. But like I said, he's had some stuff, we had some setbacks or whatever, no big deal. Kind of get a fixed amount and work with the banks and see what those rates are, what those paybacks are, and what that looks like. And then again, for all of you, if you remember, we did that big study that we had Kuhn and Trello engineers go out and do. I presented that PowerPoint presentation. We looked at every road, how old it was, what the base was, what their assessment was. So we're gonna dust that off. It's not that out of date in terms of what we knew at that point in time, because we did the worst roads. We did Old Tipton School Road. We did almost all of Flagland. There's other roads that need to be repaved that we know of, or we may think that the base, if this year or 2 years ago that road became 20 or 25 years old, that the base is going to start failing at a certain point, like at that 25-year mark or 20-year mark. Then we're going to have to make that a priority, redo that road. Or there's just some roads that fail faster, than others, and you may have people complaining to you about, bumps in roads, potholes, things like that. And that's just a general assessment that we all have to do and make as elected officials, like, we need to take care of that road that, it's come apart faster than it would have, or there's dips in those roads that we've been trying to fix. I'm not saying it needs redone, but I'm just saying, like, Meredith Drive, every year that goes by, I'm seeing more and more cracks. It's a heavily traveled road. First Street, then there's a lot of streets that you know, we're gonna have to do an assessment on here and fast. I'm gonna work with Kevin Kuhn and try and get something pulled together for everybody, but be thinking about, maybe even take, if you got time, please take a drive around town and see what you think is, you know, something that's,
I'll get my dad on.
right? Something that's,
Turtle Dove will be his first one.
right?
Well, he'll want to put reflectors in, permanent reflectors.
So,
But I know, Village Center Road was like a big one that I.
mhm. Yeah, so there's, I mean, town's aging, weather patterns are what they are, so it's time to look at addressing these issues. And we, you know, hadn't done anything for a long time, and then we did 2016, so if we try to adhere to a good capital plan ourselves, here's the 5-year mark, whatever that means, in terms of these roads and, you know, other different initiative or projects to put in there, so. That's all I have. Does anybody have anything else? Nope. All right, so we need a motion to adjourn. Motion's been made by trustee Hahn.
I should ask for a public.
Oh, no, I already did. There's nobody has signed it.
I'll make a motion.
Trustee Hahn makes a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded by trustee Gray. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You guys have it. We're adjourned at 6:33.